Hi, I'm Maeva, and this is Raising with the Village, a podcast where real parents share their real stories so none of us have to feel like we're navigating parenthood alone. In today's episode, we're continuing Liz's story, and this is a very real, very intimate part of her journey. In part 1, Liz shared what led her to pursue IVF as a lone parent and walked us through the early stages of that process. We left her at a moment of huge uncertainty, waiting to find out how many eggs had been retrieved and what that might mean for her dream of becoming a mother. In the second part, we pick up from there and follow what came next. Before we begin, I want to share a trigger warning. This episode includes discussion of pregnancy loss, so please take care while listening and pause if you need to. Liz speaks with extraordinary openness and courage here. We'll hear her relive these moments as she tells them. The hope, the fear, the setbacks, and the emotional weight of it all. This is an unfiltered account of pregnancy through IVF, and really, of pregnancy more broadly, including the parts we don't often hear spoken about out loud. It's raw, it's generous, and it's deeply human. Thank you, Liz. And now, let's jump back into her story.
People can tell you that it's going to be difficult, but that doesn't make it easier.
No.
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 I don't think you can ever be prepared for how you are going to be and how you are going to feel. And what the risks are for you and the things that cause you anxiety might be different for someone else. Once I did my first injection, I was fine with the injecting. I know other people that have done the injections and found it very traumatic. Like, different things are harder for different people. For me, the hard part was the waiting, and the big wait was yet to come. So getting an egg retrieval, you wake up from the surgery and the first question is, how many? How many eggs? And I think the first time I had like 12 eggs, and that felt like an enormous relief. That was a lift.
This is huge.
Phew. They then inseminate as many as, I think, they inseminate just all of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
To see how many embryos we get. So if all 12 fertilized, I've then got embryos on ice that I can use later. As it was, 4 embryos fertilized out of that 12. So you have your surgery, the following day you get a call from the clinic and they tell you how many. So overnight you're recovering from the surgery. It's not terribly painful, it's just a bit period pain feeling, but then it's like all night you're thinking how many. In the morning you get a phone call which says how many, and I had 4. And it's like, oh, that's not as many as I wanted, but we can handle 4. And then the next day, have they grown? Have they divided and replicated? Have we got beyond the point of insemination? Yes. Or it might have been that I had 5 and then one of them didn't. But yeah, the others were starting to work. On day 3, they grade them and decide, we'll make a decision then about how many we're getting put back in into my womb. Because of my age, so for most young women doing IVF, they will have 1 embryo put back at a time. Because of my age and the chances of them working, we had 3 put back in every round that I did. So there was a risk of triplets, but it's so tiny. The risk of triplets is way smaller than the risk of it not working.
Okay. That's something you were ready for.
Yeah, I discussed that with my embryologist before like during the process, before I had the embryos. Then they grade them and they get graded as a letter. So A being great. It's like A1 is like, oh, it's got 1,000, it's divided this many times and it's a healthy looking cell. So A1 is great, D is terrible, and below D, it's not worth using. So there's a lot of, oh my God, my child is being assessed before it's even a child. Like, Jesus, this is harsh. And I think the first round I had Bs. Yeah, mostly Bs. So that was really great. Like Bs is great. And the grading of it doesn't mean it has an impact on how likely it is to work. But if it works, it doesn't have an impact on the child. So if you've got a grade C embryo, it doesn't mean your child is going to have disabilities or be thick. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just is about how able it is to implant.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you
Does that
for,
make sense?
yeah, thank you for the clarification. I was actually wondering whether that meant anything about the child at the end of the
Yeah,
process.
because
But
I wondered that a lot. Yeah, I wondered that a lot. I was like, oh my God, so if I've got a low grade embryo, am I condemning this child to a hard life?
yeah,
Am I condemning this child to a disability or something? And again, no prejudice to disabilities. If my child have had a disability, I would love my child still, but like I don't want to do something knowingly
yeah,
to cause that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it has zero impact, none at all. So the first round, I was like really hopeful. And they put them in, and then you've got 2 weeks of just waiting. Is agonizing. It's 2 weeks of following every old wives' tale, of reading for what are the signs of early pregnancy, watching 1,000 YouTube clips about early pregnancy and whether I might be pregnant, watching 1,000 YouTube clips about women doing IVF and how they first knew they were pregnant. And I can tell you now, you won't know. Like all of that stuff relies on hormones really, which don't kick in at that early stage, not knowingly. Um, you might think but I don't like the actual evidence is sparse. It's more about hoping than anything else. But like never allowing my feet to be cold just in case. I'd given up caffeine a long time into the process. It's all of this stuff that is like, if there is anything that I can do that's gonna make a difference, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I think sadly that's where a lot of women have advantage taken off them. You're so desperate for it to work, you'll do anything. And I think you've got to be very careful that there are companies that will sell you things that are going to make a difference that won't. Supplements, la la la, all of this kind of stuff, and you've got to be very wary of it. Very wary of it. I think there is a huge market for taking advantage of women that are desperate for babies, whether they're doing it as lone parents or in couples. However, that 2 weeks took a lifetime. A lifetime. Then you go to the clinic. So then there's an internal fight of, can I just do a pregnancy test and see? But a pregnancy test won't show up at that early stage. You really need a blood test. So after 2 weeks, you go back to the clinic, you get your blood test, and it's like, oh, I'm excited and I'm scared. I'm busy with the feeling of it. I took a day off work because I was like, I cannot handle it. I need to be at home to find out if I'm pregnant. I cannot deal. And that day I paced. I had a hole in the carpet waiting for the news. And I got a call from the clinic to say that I was pregnant. And I was over fucking joyed. I danced and I screamed and I phoned my friends and I cried. Oh, I was so overjoyed. I was so overjoyed. It was thrilling. Like, oh my God, this thing that I've wanted, I've been working so hard for. I am pregnant. There's a baby in there. Shit. Like, wow, this is amazing. Oh, I'm walking on air, walking on air.
So at that point where you sort of get that
Oh, and
realization,
then you've got,
my life's going to change now.
yeah, like, oh my word, like, what next? What next? I I knew that I had to go back after 6 weeks for a scan because there is a risk with IVF that the fetus will implant in a fallopian tube and you can have an ectopic pregnancy. And there's also a risk that it can go wrong. I think any pregnancy, there is a risk, and there is a greater risk with IVF in that first 12 weeks. So I knew I wasn't out of the woods, but I was thrilled. I was excited. Like, I don't think I could think too much about the future. I was too busy thinking about, oh my God, like, let's download all of the apps, the pregnancy trackers, the how big is my baby apps, all of that stuff. I was just so excited. I was so excited. And I waited 6 more weeks to go for my first scan, and my friend came with me, and I was so anxious and really nervous, and I went in. It wasn't my usual consultant. My usual consultant, who I had a really close relationship with, was away, and it was a locum consultant, so I hadn't met her before. And she did the scan, and before she did the scan, she prepared me that it's very, very early. It's 6 weeks into a pregnancy, so there may not be a heartbeat. And I knew that there should be at least a fetal pulse. So it's like just a little. I should be able to see a little line of a fetus inside the sac, because believe me, I was doing research about this every 2 minutes. Like, I couldn't stay off of information, which sometimes was helpful and sometimes wasn't. But I laid back and she did the scan and there was no heartbeat. And I was like, okay. And I could see the sac where the fetus should be, and there was nothing in it. And she did a scan, she carried on with the scan, and kind of the mood changed. It's ish. She was like, okay, I can see a beginning of a fetal pole here. And I'm like, She's like, it's not quite where I would want it to be. We're going to need you to come back in another 2 weeks. And I just felt, oh, devastated, really, because I just knew that that was not the news I wanted. That was not the news I wanted to hear. Yeah, that was, I just had this lump in my stomach. I knew that this wasn't going to work. I just knew. She was very measured. She wasn't crushing, she was very measured, and that measuredness scared me. Like, it wasn't the happy excitement that I should have been hearing. And I can remember being on the train on the way home with my friend and her being like, "Oh, but you like the sac's there, and you knew it might not be a heartbeat." I was like, "I know, but there should be a baby. There should be something." And there isn't. There isn't. And I went back after 2 weeks, and thankfully it was my normal consultant, who was amazing and calm and reassuring about my no, he was amazing and calm and very clear with me that this was not a viable pregnancy, but he was very reassuring that it was worth trying again, that this particular pregnancy didn't work, but actually all of the things that it took to get me pregnant means that it's possible to get me pregnant again. Yes. So it was greater than 5% if I did it again. But yeah, it was crushing. So then I had to go through the process of dealing with a miscarriage, which was really, really difficult. That was really difficult and lonely as well. Um, but again, like, thankfully, my friends, you then get referred back to the NHS, and I had to go to the early pregnancy unit, who needed to confirm that it was not a viable pregnancy. They won't take the clinic's advice on that. So I then had to wait another 2 weeks. So I got scanned by the NHS and then had to wait 2 weeks for another scan. And the tears I shed. So from from that original "it's not working" scan, I had a month before I was then referred.
Mm,
I then had to make the choice about how I was gonna handle the miscarriage, which was either taking tablets, which scared me because I knew I would be at home alone,
mhm,
or waiting for it to pass naturally, and I couldn't wait anymore. I've been waiting for forever. So I knew the idea of having a miscarriage at work scared me too. I didn't wanna do that. So I opted to have an ERPC where you have it, removed. I had it vacuumed.
yeah,
Um, and that's physically difficult. Like, you have to be sedated for that, like, it's proper anesthetic, like general anesthetic. My friend was just the best. He was amazing. He stayed with me overnight. Yeah, yeah, like, without friends, this would have been just impossible, I think. I needed my friends, and my friends were there, and I think that's definitely something to factor in, how able are you to ask for help when you need it, and how able are they to offer it?
yeah.
Um, yeah, he was fabulous, fabulous, like, took me to and from the hospital, stayed with me overnight to make sure I was safe and okay after the general anesthetic, and let me cry on him, which is what I needed. I should say there's an extra layer of sadness because he died.
I'm so sorry to hear.
Yeah, yeah. So I lost him a couple of years ago. Well, no, at the start of the pandemic, I lost him.
I'm so sorry to hear. It
Yeah, thanks. So I think that makes it even more emotive looking back, you know. Um, but yeah, he was amazing. And then I had to wait for my body to recover to start round two. And then it's the soul searching, is this the right thing? Do I want to do this again? I was very determined that I did. And I think the fact that the pregnancy had happened, I'd had a taste and I wanted it. I wanted it. I'm like, right, come on. I had to wait for a healthy period to start. And that takes a while after you've had a miscarriage. Oh, that again, more waiting. I don't think anyone could have prepared me for the amount of waiting. I wasn't very good at waiting. I'm still not very good at waiting, but I had to get good at waiting because there was so much of it.
Do you remember
Um,
roughly how long the wait was after the
yeah,
surgery until your first healthy period?
I think it was about 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Mm,
And then it was Christmas. So we didn't want to begin before Christmas because of the clinic having holidays. So then I had to, once I got my healthy period, we did a scan to make sure I was ready to go. And then we had to wait till my first period after Christmas.
right. Okay.
So again, like, more waiting. But I think over that Christmas, it was like, okay, I'm just going to give my brain a break from this because it's a lot. Um, and then we did it again, and I did the whole process again, the injecting and the waiting and the scanxiety. Oh, and the 2-week wait felt enormous again. Is it gonna have worked? I should say I had an embryo on ice at this point, so I knew there was another chance. I could have just gone with the frozen embryo, but I wanted to do the full IVF because I wanted to get as many embryos as
Right.
possible.
Right. To sort of have some
That
saved if
Yeah,
you. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that if I were to go through the process again, I had some I could put more in, you know?
Yeah. Sort of a
Um,
saving account for embryos and in parallel
yeah,
run the sort of live process. So you had sort of
yeah,
a plan B, I guess.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I went through that whole process again, and in the 2-week wait, so after I'd had the embryos put in, they were a lower grade this time. They weren't Bs, they were Cs. And I felt less hopeful this time. I don't know. I think maybe I was emotionally protecting myself from not wanting to get too excited again and be too crushed again. I think I needed to preserve myself a bit in this process. So I mean, I can't say that I was detached from it. I was still very emotional about it, but I couldn't allow myself to be so excited. And then on the day where I had 3 embryos put in that were a lower grade. I waited the 2 weeks, and then on the day that I went for my blood test, I can remember feeling like, oh, that anxiety again of if it is it going to work. But I had PMT. I had PMT, and I can remember thinking, should I stay at home or should I go to work? And I decided to go to work because I was like, I think I need to distract myself today. I don't think I can cope with being alone at home. And I kind of knew. And I got to work. I was a little bit late on the train. I got to work and I went to the toilet and I had my period.
God.
So before I even got the results, I knew it wasn't going to work, and I had a big cry in the toilet. And then when I saw my work bestie and sat in her office and cried, and then I went and did my job and was distracted as much as I could be. But yeah, that was a really grueling day. Um, After work, I got the call from the clinic about the bloods. My nurse, I'd had the same nurse all the way through as well, so she was great. She gave me the bad news, and I was like, "It's okay. I already know.
Mm.
I've come on my period." And she was like, "Okay." When I said, "I've got a question. When can I do it again?" I said, I know I should wait another month, but can we just go from today because I'm on my period? Can we just go?"
Yeah, because I was going to
Uh,
ask actually, because it was a very different situation to the first time. Because this time
yeah,
around, in a way, there was no loss of pregnancy. It's that it
it just
didn't
didn't
work.
work. Yeah.
Okay.
So this was effectively an ordinary period, and I think I felt very panicked that every egg wasted was a waste of an egg. That was maybe my baby that had just
Mm.
gone in a period. And I was very scared. I didn't want to wait for the next period. I didn't want to do that. Um, Normally, they make you wait for the next period, and probably sensibly and healthily. That's the right thing to do, technically. But but my nurse was like, I've never had anybody ask me that before. Let me go and talk to the doctor."
Mm.
So she went away, called me back and said, "Okay, I've spoke to the doctor." And he said, normally the answer is a very clear no, but he knows you. And so, yes, let's get the meds ordered. Can you come and get them tomorrow?
Okay.
And I was like, yes, let's do this. So I went immediately from one round of IVF into the next round of IVF. And I should say, during this time of doing these IVFs, you're in that clinic twice a week. You get a really close relationship with these people. The staff were fabulous. They were also part of the support. Like, they were sad with me when it didn't work, and they comforted me. And I think that was really important because I think you could feel taken advantage of, or I think it could be hard to trust. Am I getting the right information, or is it in their interests that I do another round of IVF? But I never felt that. I always felt that they very much followed my lead about what I wanted. And I very much trusted my consultant. And yeah, he from what he said to the nurses, like, yes, she's very determined and she wants to do this. Let's just do it. There's no physical reason why not. So let's just do it. So we did it. For me, like, this was a third round of IVF. And again, it was about keeping any embryos that I got from it as a plan B. I wanted to do each round of IVF that I'd planned for and paid for, as it were.
Oh, sorry.
Um,
So when you say planned for and paid for, do you pay for them in
so my
advance? So did you pay for 3 rounds?
Yes. So
Okay,
my clinic offered a bit of a bog off. It was like buy one, get one free kind of situation, or buy two, get the third one free. And that was that was part of my decision making process to go with this clinic. It was no frills. There were no bells and whistles on the service in terms of all the added extras, but I got 3 tries at something that I would not have been able to afford through other clinics. But that's it kind of makes it sound, I don't want that to sound like it was a budget clinic, like that they were slapdash or unprofessional. That was not the case. It was very, very professional. They are very My particular clinic are used to dealing with women that are in their 40s. That's kind of their specialism, and they have a good success percentage of pregnancies from women in their 40s.
right.
And that part of that is because they offer the bits that work.
Mm,
They offer the actual IVF is the bit that works, not all the bells and whistles that may or may not work, all the extras. So it's a very pared back service in terms of what you're being offered. You're getting the bones, the essentials, but that's because that's expensive and that's what you need. So I got a very good rate and paid upfront for 3 rounds of IVF,
right.
knowing that at my age, that's what I would
Okay.
need.
Okay.
Um, at least that. And I wanted to keep my embryos for a 4th try so that just in case. Um, I only got embryos from frozen embryo from the first round of IVF. I didn't get any more after. So on that 3rd round, my embryos were graded at C's. I had them implanted. I had 3 implanted, but they were like low grade embryos. They were just viable for IVF.
Sorry, do you
So
know if they were C's because of the time? Because you said that they came from the first round, or were they always C's? And that's the reason why maybe they
it's
had
to
not
do.
implanted them the first time around.
Oh no, so these it was from a separate IVF. So I'd done 3 separate rounds of
Right.
IVF,
Okay.
3 separate egg collections, and it just happens that the embryos that grew were graded because of how quickly they divide and replicate, how well they do. I don't know the technicalities of it. I did at the time, but it's a while ago now.
No, it's
But
fine.
yeah, the quality of the embryo, as it were, um, it's different for
Okay.
every egg and every sperm makes a difference. And yeah, sorry, they weren't C's. My final round, they were D's. They were just about viable. I think I had 1 C and 2 D's. I had 3 embryos put in, and they weren't great grades. And
Mm,
I had them put in, and I felt very flat about it. I kind of was right, this isn't going to work. Let's start researching. Let's look at plan B now. I started researching buying eggs, things like that, in case my frozen one didn't work. Money was running out as well. So I was like, I've got to be realistic about money. But I was kind of at that point, I had the bit between my teeth, and that was I would sell my house to do this. I don't know if it had have come to it, I wouldn't have, I don't think. But at that moment, I had baby fever. I was blinded. I was like, I'm going to do what it takes. Yes, but I felt very, very low about that 3rd one. I did not feel good. No signs of early pregnancy, no excitement, just anxiety really of, okay, what next? I was already working on the assumption that it wasn't going to work. Um, And I remember the day that I went for the blood test, walking slowly and kind of wishing that I didn't have to do the blood test because I wanted. At this point, I had Schrodinger's baby. It may be a baby, it may not be a baby. And I kind of wanted, I didn't want to be told that it wasn't
Yeah. You wanted to stay
a
in that
baby.
in between phase that it
Yeah,
could be, it
yeah,
could not be, I'm happy being here.
yes, yes, yes. So I did the blood test. I took the day off work. I was like, sod that. I'm not doing it. I don't care. I can't handle it today. I will go home. And I went home from the blood test. I put the TV on and watched back to back episodes of Friends.
Always good.
Oh, oh this is wild still to me. I laid on my sofa. I ate chocolate. I drank tea, even though I'd been caffeine free for however long, because I was like, it's clearly not going to work, so it doesn't even matter. And I cried and I watched Friends and I fell asleep on the sofa. And I kind of woke up to the episode of Friends where Phoebe had just found out from IVF that she was having her brother's triplets and had just I woke up to her being told it was triplets and was just like simultaneously laughing and crying. Like it was a funny episode and I was in bits because I could have triplets. I wasn't going to get triplets. I was so sure. And then the phone rang and it was my nurse and she was like, "Are you okay, Liz?" I was like, "No, not really." She's like, "Are you laying down? Are you sitting?" No, that was it. She said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "No, I'm laying down." And she went, "That's probably a good job." I was like, "I know." She went, "Yeah, because you're pregnant."
Oh my God.
Oh, oh God. I stopped playing down. I was on my feet. I was dancing and crying again. Oh, yeah, I was pregnant. I was fucking pregnant. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But then the fear
Mm.
hit me like a ton of bricks. Don't get attached. Don't get excited. Stop it. Like, it might not work. This one, it might not work. And I was like, okay, let's book in the scan. Um, and she's like, okay, in 6 weeks. I said, no, we're going to book it in 9 weeks
Oh, wow.
because I cannot go there and be told that this is not viable. This may or may not be viable. Come back in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
I want to know when I have the scan, whether it's
Yes and
working
no.
or whether it's not
Yeah.
working. I want a definitive answer. So even though it's more waiting, I need to know when I have that scan that I'm getting the right answer. So,
What did you
yeah.
do? What did you do during that time?
Oh, worried. I worried. I worried and worried and worried and looked at my belly and worried and did pregnancy tests and worried and stopped doing pregnancy tests because I remembered that with the last one, they were positive, even though it wasn't viable. So that was pointless and I was wasting money. And I worried some more. And I went about my days and I did my work. And every moment when I sat on the train on my commute and looked out of the window, I wasn't looking at the scenery. I was worrying. I was worrying about my baby. I remember wishing that I had like a glass window that I could see what was going on, that I could feel what was going on, but I couldn't feel anything. I had no morning sickness,
Mm.
none, no signs. There was nothing, nothing. I didn't feel sick. I didn't have a weird taste. The first pregnancy, I had a weird taste in my mouth. By the time I I knew that it wasn't viable. I had that really weird metallic
Mm.
old pennies flavour in my mouth that I had to suck lemon drops to get rid of. I had nothing, no signs of it at all. Um, so when I went for the scan, a different friend, the one who had been through IVF before, came with me. So I just picked who was available out of my closest friends. She came with me, and I lay down and I looked at the scan, and my consultant, my usual consultant, was the guy, and I felt like that was a good omen. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in signs and symbols and potents. And my God, when I was going through that process, anything, if the wind blew the trees in a particular direction, I took it as a sign, everything. I was just grasping. Um, but he put the scanner on my belly, and immediately I could hear, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. I could hear that heartbeat. Oh, it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. It's only ever been beaten by one other sound, and the only sound that beat it was the day that I gave birth and heard that baby cry.
Oh gosh. There's a lot of
Oh.
tears on this conversation.
Oh, like, wow, it was just the relief and the joy, and I've got a video recording of it. I listen to it still. Um, I on the screen, I could see the circle of my egg sac, like the sac where the baby is, before it's really developing into like a placenta and stuff. And I could see what she looks like, a little frog. It looked like a little frog because it's so early in the pregnancy, and I could see the heartbeat. Oh, just amazing, just amazing. And the heartbeat was loud, and the heartbeat is strong, and the measurements are perfect. And I left so elated, so elated. I think the impact of going through all that anxiety doesn't just turn off. Like, I remained anxious for a good while. I was still very scared that something could go wrong, and often found myself at the early pregnancy unit just to check. I think they knew I was just an anxious mother, and I'd be like, "Yes, I've had a bit of bleeding. Can you please do a scan and just make sure that there's still a baby there?" And they humoured me, and I'm glad. And I don't regret going to those early pregnancy scans, even though I had to get up at like 5 in the morning to be at the front of the queue. um, yeah, yeah, the relief. And yes, I was pregnant, and then I had pregnancy as a lone mother. Um,
So at this point, do you
and
come out of the private
yes,
clinic?
so once you've had that second scan, you're pregnant, and there is no need now to be under the clinic. Off you go to the NHS, go tell your GP, and get a midwife and begin the journey of pregnancy, which is a wild ride as a lone parent. That's a big one too.
We're leaving Liz today towards the end of her first trimester, at a moment where there is hope, but still so much unfolding ahead. Thank you so much for listening to this deeply personal second part of Liz's story. And a heartfelt thank you to Liz for the honesty and generosity she brings to the conversation, for allowing us to sit alongside her in the uncertainty, the vulnerability, and the emotional reality of early pregnancy after IVF. In a few weeks, we'll be back with part 3, the final part of her story, where Liz will share the rest of her pregnancy journey and open up about what life looks like as a lone parent, the practical realities, the emotional landscape, and everything in between. Until then, thank you for listening and for holding space for stories like this. Raising with the Village will now be released every other Thursday, giving me the space to keep bringing you thoughtful and honest conversations. You can find all past episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you usually listen. And you can follow the show there, so new episodes land straight into your feed. If you'd like to get in touch, share feedback, or suggest a story, you can find me on Instagram at Raising with the Village. I always love hearing from you. And if this podcast has resonated with you, one of the best ways to support it is by subscribing, rating, leaving a review, or sharing an episode with someone who might need it. It truly makes a difference and helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Thank you for being part of the village, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.